Hi everyone, my name is Joseph Koensgen and welcome back to my art studio. Today what I want to show you is how I photograph my paintings once they are finished. I just recently finished this painting here of a robin in the fall time with some nice red fall leaves on these branches, and it turned out really nice. I'm very happy with it. And so the only thing I have to do now is photograph this painting so that I can have a really nice image to post on Instagram and Facebook and onto my website. And then in the future, I want to be able to make some nice high quality prints of this image. So today I want to show you how I do that, how I photograph it, and how I make the adjustments in Lightroom. So the first piece of equipment you'll need when it comes to taking a high quality photograph of your work is a really high quality camera. Now it doesn't have to be the highest quality, but the highest quality you can get. And so the camera that I use is the Canon 5D Mark II. I've had this camera for about 10 years and it's been a great camera for me. The key with a camera that you're going to be taking an image of your painting is that it needs to be able to shoot in RAW. And the reason you want it to be able to shoot in RAW is that all the data that is collected by your camera sensor is going to be stored by that image. So when it comes down to editing that photo and adjusting it in Lightroom later, all of that data is going to be preserved and we won't have any loss of information. So the next thing after you have your high quality camera is you want to have a high quality lens. And so the lens that I'm going to be using is the Canon 24-70 f2.8. And this lens is really sharp and really clear, and it's produced many great images for me. I've used it for photographing all my paintings in the past, and it's a really great lens for this purpose. So the next thing after we have our camera equipment ready is that we want to make sure that once we photograph it, the colors are accurate and it's as close to the original as possible. This is going to be especially important when it comes down to printing, because when the prints come out, I want the colors to be very close to, or as close as possible to the original painting. So I'm going to use something to calibrate those colors. This is the Spider Checker 24. And what it is it's a card that has 24 colors on it, and I'm going to put this next to the painting when I photograph it so that the software in the computer, once we've brought the images into Lightroom later, the software will know exactly how to adjust for each color so that after that software runs, the painting is going to look just like the original did or as close as possible. So this is really important if you're going to be printing your images or printing your paintings. You'll need something like this to make sure that all the colors that are in your paintings are accurate and correct like how they were in the original. So the final thing to keep in mind when you photograph your work is the lighting. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be taking my painting outside to photograph it. I've been waiting for an overcast day for a few days now, and finally we have one. In my personal experience, I've found that overcast days, like where it's sort of gray and the light is very soft and diffused, is the best lighting to photograph my art. So I take it outside and I set it up and I photograph it in that really great natural gray overcast day, and it produces the best colors and the best quality for what I want to do. So I'm going to grab all the equipment, I'll set up the camera, and we'll head outside, and when I'm out there, I'll show you the camera settings in camera while I'm photographing it to show you exactly what I'm going to be doing and how I take this photograph. And then after that, we'll take those raw images and put them into Lightroom, and we will adjust the colors, and I will show you what I do there. All right, I'm outside now. Really great day, nice overcast day with really nice diffused, even natural light. This is what I was wanting because the light is going to be really great just to get that nice even tone over the painting. So let me show you what I have set up here. I've got the painting and the color calibration card just set up on some foam core, and this is just so that they both lay flat and on sort of the same plane so that the light is going to fall evenly on both the color card and on the painting as well. So I've just got that set up on a small easel in the snow here, and then I'm going to set up the camera. Before I do that though, I just want to make sure that the camera and the painting are on the same plane, and so that they're even, so that you're not having the top of the painting tilting away from the camera or the bottom or any of the sides as well. So once I do that, once I set up the camera, I'll show you the settings that I'm going to do based on the light that's today. So we'll talk about custom white balance, shutter speed, aperture, and focusing the camera. Okay, so now that I've got the camera lined up with the painting and it's sort of on the same plane as the painting, I will first want to switch the camera to manual mode. Okay, and then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set my ISO at the lowest possible setting so that the image isn't going to be very noisy. The lower the ISO, the less noise and less grain you're going to have in your image. So I'm going to set my ISO on my camera to 100. And then what I want to do is I want to set my aperture. Now this lens is really sharp at 2.8, but on a bit of a brighter day, and because I want a greater depth of field, I'm going to set the camera to f4 or f5.6, depending on what the shutter speed and what the light meter is going to tell me. And then next I want to set my shutter speed based on what the light meter is telling me. And so if I look in the camera here, it's telling me that 1/100th of a second is going to be right in the middle where it's not overexposed and underexposed. And I'll take a few pictures to start, and then we'll just kind of gauge it from there. And I might take one that's overexposed and one that's underexposed and see what it's like on the camera later. And then the next thing I want to set is I want to set the white balance. Now, if your camera can do a custom white balance, that'll be best. If not, you can set it to the cloudy function or the cloudy day setting. Mine can do custom white balance, and so I want to set it at about 6,000. In my experience, that's been about the temperature setting for the custom white balance on a cloudy day is about 6,000 to 6,500. And then another thing I want to set, and this is going to be really important to make sure that we have a really nice, sharp, clear image, is I'm actually going to set a timer, a 2-second timer on the camera so that when I take the picture, I can take my hands away and reduce any vibration that I might introduce into the camera while it's taking a picture. So this will just help. It's just that one next thing to make your image as clear as possible is to remove all that vibration that would come from your hands, from leaning on the camera or having your hand on the camera. So set a 2-second timer. And then the next thing I want to set is I want to make sure that the camera is shooting in RAW. So I'll go down to my RAW setting, change it to RAW, and there we go. Now the last and final thing is going to be to focus the camera. Now this is a really important step because we want our picture to be in focus and nice and clear, and we want the focal plane to be right on the same plane as the painting. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to switch it to manual focus, and I'm going to push the live view function. So if your camera has the ability to do live view, you can do that and it'll show you the back of the screen. So once I have the live view open, I'm just going to zoom in and I'm just going to make sure that it's perfectly in focus. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. Okay, so now that I've got the camera set up, it's on ISO 100. The f-stop is 5.6. The shutter speed is 1/100th of a second. We're shooting in RAW. It's been focused, and I have a 2-second timer on the camera. The only thing left to do now is to take a couple pictures. Okay, that looks really good. So now that I've got a few pictures, I'm going to take them and I'm going to put them on the computer, and now we'll go into Lightroom and I will show you how to make the color adjustments and any other adjustments we might need to make to the image to make our picture look as close as possible to the original painting. Alright, so I've got my image in Lightroom. This was the best one out of the ones that I had taken, and even still I can tell it looks a little bit cool, but that's alright. We're going to deal with that in a moment. The first thing I want to do before I start adjusting any colors is I want to scroll down and I want to adjust for the lens distortion and the vignetting. So when I go down to lens correction, I'm just going to click the enable profile corrections, and you can see that the make and model of my lens comes up in this profile here, and you can see how it just changes it slightly. It adjusts for that distortion, so the image is a little bit more square, and it takes away that vignetting. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to adjust for the white balance, and the way I want to do that is I want to use this gray eyedropper right here. So I want to click that, and I want to go over to a neutral gray area, which is going to be one of these gray squares on my color calibration card. And when I click this, it'll most likely warm it up quite a bit. So I'm going to click, and oh yeah, wow, okay, that warmed it up quite a bit, which was good because before, if I go back, you can see that it's quite cool, and in the histogram here we can see that there's a lot of blue. So I'm just going to click on that again, and it's going to warm it up to about 6500, and it's adjusted our tint to -4 as well. Okay, the next thing I want to do, and specifically with this color calibration card, is I want to adjust my white point. And so if I go up here and I hover over this white square, you're going to see the percentages up in the corner by our histogram, and I want to get those to about 95%. So they're at 82 right now, and I'm just going to scroll this slider up till we get to about 95%. Okay, that should be pretty good. The next thing I want to do is I want to adjust my black point, which I want to keep around between 5 and 10%. It's at 7 right now. That should be good. I'm going to bring it up a little bit just because it looks a little bit too contrasted based on my painting, which will also change later once we run the software for the color calibration card. It will change the look of all these because it's going to adjust it based on each one of these colors. So now that I've adjusted my white balance and my black point and my white point, I'm ready to bring this color calibration card into the software that will adjust those colors. So I want to grab the crop tool, and I want to crop this down so that it's just the color calibration card. Okay, I'm going to click done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Photo and Edit in Spider Checker. Yes, I want to edit a copy with Lightroom Adjustments. Okay, so now that we have our program open for the color calibration, what I want to do is I just want to align everything up. There's all these little squares that are the same as the squares that are for this card, and what you want to do is you just want to adjust it so that they're all roughly in the middle of the card. If you crop it nicely, then it shouldn't be too much, so I'm just going to leave it like that for now. I'm going to go over here to our saving options, where you can save it for a few different things. I'm going to save it under saturation. This is probably going to give me the best natural look for the colors that I want to do. And we're going to have save to Lightroom selected because this is going to save a preset in Lightroom that we can go and click on, which will then have adjusted all of our colors from before. So I'm going to click Save Calibration, and we're going to title it Robin, just to make it easy. Okay, your calibration has been saved to Lightroom. Perfect. We're going to quit, and now in order for this preset to be loaded into Lightroom, we just have to restart Lightroom. So I'm going to quit, and I'm going to open it back up, and that will be ready. Okay, so Lightroom is opening again, and it's going to load all of our photos from before, and I'm just going to wait for it to load that preset. Great, so all custom developed presets were successfully converted to XMP. That's what we want to see. Okay, I'm going to go back to our image, and I'm going to reset our crop. In fact, I might just bring it down just so that it's just the painting and our color calibration card. And on the side window here, where I have my presets, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom where I have a bunch of other presets I've made for other paintings, and I'm going to just hover over this one that we titled Robin. And in fact, you can see it's subtle, but it makes a big difference because now all the colors are adjusted according to this color calibration card. And I've got my painting next to me, and I'm just looking at it to make sure that it's okay, and it looks really good. So now that we have that calibration saved, I'm going to select it, and now we can make some finer adjustments, a little bit more artistic adjustments based on what I know my painting is. A lot of times with the camera, it doesn't take things exactly perfectly. It needs a little bit of fine-tuning because the painting, will have a certain look to it. So I'm just going to make a few of those adjustments, and the first one that I can see is that it has a little bit too much contrast. So I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm also, while I'm thinking of it, I'm just going to check our white balance and make sure we're okay. Oh, actually, yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah, that's roughly where we want to be. I do notice that the white point has changed just a little bit, so I'm just going to bring it up because I'm noticing that my painting is a little bit brighter. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm just going to warm it up just a tad because I'm noticing that there's still a little bit of blue showing in that histogram, and I kind of want it to have that warmer tone that I can see the original has in person. I didn't do it very much, maybe about 100 points on the temperature. That should be good. Okay, and I just want to go down here and show you what this color calibration did. You can see that it's adjusted each one of these color sliders for the hue, the saturation, and the luminance, and this is what makes the color calibration so accurate, is that it takes all of this information and it adjusts it individually for each one of these color channels. And the other reason why it's important to shoot in RAW is that all that information that is being adjusted here is preserved in that RAW file, so that when we go and adjust it, there's no information that's lost, and all the information that we have to work with is available for this editing. So I'm just going to make a slight adjustment here because I'm noticing that the reds need to be just slightly adjusted. I don't want to do it too much. Yeah, that's too much. Bring it back down. So I just changed that to +2. Everything else looks really good. I don't think I need to do very much more beyond this. But the next thing I am going to do is I'm just going to adjust the sharpening. I'm going to go in here and just going to look at it. It looks pretty good, but I do notice that they've had it automatically set up to 40, which is a bit too much for me. And if I'll slide it all the way to the end here, because if you have it too sharp like this, there tends to be a lot of artifacts, and it starts to look really grainy. So I'm actually going to bring that down all the way to 20. Yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. I don't need to do any noise reduction because it looks fairly clean already, and there's not a lot of noise. And that's because I shot this with the ISO 100, so we're working with a very low noise, very, like, not a lot of grain with our image sensitivity. So I think that just about does it. I'm just going to lower the contrast a little bit more. Now, if you don't have one of these color calibration cards, you can adjust each one of these sliders individually, which is what I used to do before I did a lot of this color calibration. I would adjust these individually to get the colors right, but you know, it was never exactly right, and it wasn't as quick as it was when I had this color calibration card. So it is an important thing to have, but it's not necessary. These adjustments can be made manually. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now that we're finished is I'm just going to crop it down to the right size. I just want to get it as close as possible to the edge so we're not losing any image. Okay, and there we go. There is the painting, photographed, color calibrated, and adjusted to look as close to the original as possible. I'm really happy with this. This looks really great. The only thing left to do now is to save. So we're going to export, and if you were going to be exporting this for a printing file, like if you wanted to make a print, you would have it set to TIFF because it's going to contain all that raw data that we had in our original file, and you're not going to have any loss of information or any compression like we're going to have with JPEG. But I'm going to be doing this just right now to upload to a website and social media, so I want to set it to JPEG. The color space I want to have is sRGB, and the quality can be whatever you want. For now, just as an image to start with, and I can, you know, crop it to different sizes or make it different sizes, is I'm just going to have it set to 100 so that I can start off with a higher quality JPEG when I save. And so now all I have to do is to export, and it is done. If you have any questions about what I did today, camera settings, any of the things that I did in Lightroom here, I've gone over it fairly quickly just to kind of keep this video a bit shorter, but if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for watching.